I'm Jeff.
I'm Donna.
And this is
The Meador Effect.
Out in Arizona where Saguaro Grove live Jeff and Donna Meador and their TV show. Talking about love and the things they do. Bringing peace and joy to people like you. It's the Meador Effect. It's the Meador Effect. It's their sincere desire to have an effect. As a matter of fact, it's the Meador Effect. It's the Meador Effect. It's the Meador Effect. It's the Meador Effect. It's the Meador Effect.
great to have you guys with us today. We have a fantastic show lined up, as always. And today we have a very pertinent subject. And that subject is...
Bumps. Bumps. Bumps in the road. The bumps of life. Bumps.
Bumps in the road. Or as Inspector Clouseau would say, bimps. Whatever you call them, they're still there. Yeah. And we all have them.
Yeah, we do. Life is full of bumps.
It is. And the question is, though, what do you do with those bumps, or how do you handle those bumps? As most of you know, we primarily are always talking about relationships. We're talking about long-term relationships with your spouse, with your significant other. Mwah.
Yum.
You're going to have bumps. And when you have the bumps, you have to have something in place. It's always best to have something already in place on how to negotiate, how to navigate those bumps. Some bumps they're small. They're a little pothole. Just a little bitty one.
What?
About an inch deep.
Yeah.
And then there's others where you're like, I could drive the whole car off into that bad boy.
Well, and those are usually the little ones that got ignored, and then they got bigger. So, now bumps that's a very broad term. So let's talk a little bit about that. Did we have bumps? I mean, do we have bumps?
Well,
in our relationship?
Everyone has bumps in their relationship.
What does it look like to have a bump?
Well, it's different for every relationship. Donna and I had the luxury of finding each other when we were older. We had already gone through a lot of personal development. We had already gone through a lot of horrific things in our lives to where we understood the value of what we had in each other, the value of putting things in place before the bumps came.
Well, right, and also how to deal with the bumps when they come.
Yeah.
Right. We have enough life in us to know that the bumps will come and the bumps will go.
Yes.
And that's the beautiful thing. You know, there are ups and there are downs, and then guess what? There are ups again. Right?
Yes.
So, and interestingly enough, I think in our relationship now, where we're at, because we only met 3.5 years ago, that the bumps in our life are from the things on the outside of us that are happening, right? Yeah. Those are the bumps of the world. The bumps of the world, the bumps of the family. And these aren't bad. Bumps aren't bad necessarily. No. You just know that you have to stop and think about how you want to deal with the bump so that it doesn't throw us off kilter, right?
Well, and what she was talking about, outside forces. Currently, if you live in the U.S., and I'm sure Canada as well, but especially in the U.S., inflation is just crazy. Your buying power is a lot less. The government comes out and says it's 7%, and I'm thinking, I don't know where you're looking, but used car prices are up 40% over last year. Coffee prices are up 110% over last year. All of these things are way up. And what does that mean? Well, if you have a financial road you're driving down, you have a budget, that's a bump.
That's a bump.
That's a big bump. And then you have to ask yourself, how am I going to handle the bump? How are we going to handle the bump? And one of the things, again, that you and I have that we've been blessed with is that we talk, we communicate.
Right.
And everyone thinks they talk and communicate, but a lot of people talk and they don't really say anything.
They don't listen. People talk and don't listen.
What?
Very funny. Very funny. People listening is so important, and again, we've had a lot of bump experiences.
Yes.
Everybody does, and I didn't understand that when I was younger. Most people just don't. They think life is happening to them, you and I understand that life happens for us.
Yes.
That it gives us an opportunity to overcome a challenge or to look at life differently or to reinvent ourselves or so forth, right?
Well, I want to stop just for a second.
Okay.
I want you guys to think about that statement because it really is true. Most people live their lives with life happening to them. You can make the choice, life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. Now, I can tell you sometimes when that bump seems like the Grand Canyon, it's not just a little hole in the road, it's enveloping my whole life. When Donna's late husband Pietro passed away, that's a big bump.
That was a bump.
That was the Grand Canyon. That was huge. It wanted to swallow her up. And she had to ask herself, okay, what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? How do I want to get through this? How do I want to come out on the other side? And she had to stop and think, life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. How could this possibly be for me?
Yeah, I have to say, my mother, we're going back to the 70s when I first heard that from my mother, maybe the 80s. Mom, I love you.
Love you, Mom.
She brought such great wisdom into my world as a young adult, a child even, and started with health food and then philosophy. And I remember one of the first books she started raving about because she got her hands on personal development. We're always talking about that.
Yep.
Was I'm okay, you're okay. I'm okay, you're okay. She brought it to the house. And I was like, I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old. So, the power of positive thinking, all these wonderful shows. But books. But these are the things that as you read and you understand, helps you deal with your bumps.
Yes, yes. And again, we've already talked about it. The bumps come in different shapes, sizes. They come at different times in your life. We all have different bumps. One of the bumps that we talked about in an earlier episode was our first Christmas as a married couple. I can tell you right now, if you haven't seen that episode, go back and find it.
That was fun.
It's fun now.
It was a little bump. I cried a little bit, and we resolved it.
Yes,
and again,
but it's still a bump.
It's still a bump. And if you didn't see the episode, it was about gifts and how gifts are really important to me, especially at Christmas. And Jeff thought that when I told him that a comforter could be our Christmas gift
for each other,
he took that seriously. Like, I don't know, he really believed me.
Guys, don't ever believe the significant other when she says, "Oh, I don't need any other Christmas presents."
Yeah, okay. So, all right. We'll just move on to this episode, which is a bump. So that caused a bump. Yeah. But again, a bump is best served when you take responsibility for your part of it. Your part of it.
Yes.
And then communication. And again, there's no blame. This is not the blame game.
No.
This is, I'm sorry you felt bad. I'm sorry I did that and that resulted in this. Like, how can we smooth it out or make it feel better or deal with it,
Well, and again, I would encourage, I'm going to talk to the guys here. When you hit that bump in the relationship, be honest with yourself and look at your part in the bump. There's always two parts to a bump. There is. If you're in a relationship, it takes two to tango, that old saying.
True.
Well, when it comes to a bump, there's two people involved, and you have to ask yourself, guys, what was my part in the bump? And how could I possibly have avoided it? And then begin to put something in place. We talk about this all the time, personal development. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be the guy that's known by your wife's or your significant others, all of her girlfriends, this guy's pretty bumpy? Or do you want to be known as the guy that he's just smooth sailing? When there is a bump, man, this guy is such a luxury vehicle, you almost don't feel it.
My girlfriends love to tell me how wonderful you are, honey, and I love to hear it. They're absolutely correct. I'm not kidding. Listen, the guy makes the bed, I'm in the shower, I start smelling coffee, I look over, there's a cup of coffee for me. Now, acts of service are his number one love language, so, and it's my number two now that I understand. 20 years later, it's number two. 20 years ago, it was zero. But how wonderful was that? And we can smooth out bumps as we understand each other's way of being, love language, if you will. We want to bring love and joy into each other's lives, right? We have a great amount of respect and admiration for each other.
Yes.
We like to promote that with each other.
Yes.
With each other, by ourselves, in our house by ourselves. Jeff is always telling me about qualities that he admires in me. And he doesn't say, you're wonderful, babe. He doesn't just say, you're awesome. And because I say, like, well, how am I wonderful? Like, I want to know how I'm wonderful. And he's able to give me details of why he thinks I'm brilliant. And that is so soothing to my soul.
Well, what I did was I made a list of character qualities. And the reason I did that is, guys, I'm married to, as you can see, a very beautiful woman. And she has heard all of her life, oh, you're beautiful, you're wonderful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. But I wanted her to know, not only do I think she's beautiful, I want her to know that I love her because of the character and the character qualities that she possesses. So I made a list of hundreds of character qualities. If you would like a copy of that list, you can go.
Are you going to put that on the website?
I'm going to put it on the website. Guys need it. Trust me. You can go to meadoreffect.com and there'll be a link. You can get the list. But what I would encourage you to do is when you're going down that list, you find something. The other day, I told her, I said, you're so courageous. This is a very courageous woman that's sitting next to me. And then I tell her why that she's courageous. I pick out a character quality that is true. Don't just be picking out stuff that just because it's on the list. Hey, you're sassy. I don't know if that's on the list. I don't remember. But you know what I'm saying. Be genuine. But I constantly try to reinforce her character qualities. Now, why am I bringing that up? Because, guys, it really makes life easier and it makes the bumps a little smoother if you're on the road and you are in a little, let's say they're in a Fiat 500.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you come up to some railroad tracks and you go over that railroad tracks, it's like, boom. But if you are in a top of the line Mercedes and you get up to those same railroad tracks and you go over,
Barely feel it.
you if you feel it at all, you barely feel it. Why? Because the vehicle you're in is it's a luxury vehicle, and you want your relationship to be a luxury vehicle.
And this brings me to a point here. We're talking about bumps. So there are bumps on the outside of our life that will come to you, no doubt, in whatever that way that looks, whether it's something going on in the economy or life outside, a friend, a family member. Somebody gets, somebody passes away, somebody has a baby. Those are somewhat bumps because it's changing your daily routine, right? But and those we just learn to deal with together as a couple to help as we move forward to make the bumps less smooth because we're calling it a bump. It's not that it's bad. It's just
well, it's something that you basically are going to encounter on your journey. We talk about being on a journey in your life all the time on our show. You know that if you watch us regularly. You are on a journey.
And typically it's unexpected. That's why I'm bringing up a bump. But bumps in your relationship, we constantly are focused on how we can keep our life smooth and exciting with each other based on how we know each other to be, what we love about one another, how we lift each other up, and so forth. So keeping those bumps smooth help the bumps on the outside seem less pertinent. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfectly good sense. Okay. And like I was saying before, you are on a journey. If you are in a committed relationship, you're in a vehicle with somebody else. Imagine going from LA to New York in a car with your significant other. Now, for some people, the thought of that, it would be better for them to go over to a chalkboard and, the old fingernails on the chalkboard than to get into a vehicle and go across the country with their significant other. But why do you want to be that way? Why do you want it to be that way? You can begin right now to change through personal development. And again, we say this all the time. You don't know where to start? Go to meadoreffect.com. We will have a list of books you can start to read that you can begin to change who you are in order to become the person that you really, really want to be. Do you really want to be the husband that gets irritated when his wife starts talking too much?
Are you saying something?
No.
Are you saying something about me?
Is it an evil something? Do you want to be that? If you don't, then you can't expect her to change. I promise you, if you're expecting somebody else to change for you to be happy, you're not going to ever be happy. You're not.
Yeah.
You're just not.
No, happiness comes from within.
It does.
100%, and it's how we look at life. And again, it's our story, right? So,
and since we're here, I was going to say, one of the things that's really cool about life is there's a lot of different flavors.
yes.
And I wrote a little ditty that's got a little different flavor to it.
Oh.
It's
I don't know if I've heard this one.
You haven't.
Oh.
I wrote it more in a kind of a country style.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and again, it has to do with, the bumps in the road, so I hope you guys enjoy it.
Driving down the road in that old truck of mine, hitting every bump it seems I see, wishing for somebody else to ease my troubled mind, to straighten out my crooked life and fix the road for me, and fix the road for me, fix the road for me.
Wow! I love that. That is, and I never heard it. I love the ode to the country flair. Very cool. And wow. But you're right. Nobody can fix that bumpy road for you. Okay,
Yeah.
So that's true. I love that, baby. Thank you.
I'm glad.
I like when he writes songs for me. Aw. I don't know what to
And
say.
just so you guys know, when we actually are thinking about what we're going to talk about, we come up with a topic. And for the most part, that's really all we do. We don't script it all out. And we know some shows do, and that's great for them. It's just not for us. So when you're hearing us, we're talking from our hearts. We are talking basically just what's popping into our mind and trying to share it with you. So when we're talking about bumps in the road, the only thing that we have an idea what we're going to do usually is the title, a little bit about what we might talk about, and then if I have a song, I try to have that, thought out in advance. That would go along with the topic. But outside of that,
But other than that, I didn't hear this song before. So
because
that's
if
really
you've
cool.
seen some of our episodes earlier when I didn't have that planned out, you can see a bump in the road.
It was a fun bump. It was a fun bump. Make your bumps fun.
For her.
Yeah. Make your bumps fun. There'll always be bumps in life. And I never understood this because when you're young, and I'm going to say maybe before 20 years old, you're thinking that you can control life. And what kind of bumps have I had in my life? Let's see. I had chronic fatigue in the 90s, so I pretty much out of commission for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, a lot of years.
Lived through 9/11. I'm living in New York, so that was quite a bump.
Yeah.
Barely survived 2008 economy. That was a huge bump, and I wasn't alone in this. You guys, you have all been through these kinds of bumps, and then I became a widow at 57. That was a huge bump. So then somebody said to me, "Well, how did you do with pandemic?" And after hearing all that, I said, "Pandemic was a breeze. Are you kidding?" I was stuck at home with my hunky new husband here, and I was having a ball. We were together 24 hours a day for one solid year, and we loved it.
Yeah.
We loved it.
We
so,
And for a lot of people, that would be a bump. So I have to ask you, if it is a bump, what do you need to do to smooth out the road? One of my favorite Beatles songs, there is a verse, and John read the paper, and then he wrote this song, and it says, I read the news today, oh boy, 4,000 holes in Blackburn, Lancashire. Those 4,000 holes were potholes. And the engineer that basically was in charge of the program did this calculation. He said, that's enough space to fill up the Albert Hall. And so John said, 4,000 holes in Blackburn, Lancashire, and though the holes were rather small, they had to count them all. And now they know how many holes it takes to fill the Albert Hall.
Now, for those of you who don't know, he's talking about John Lennon. He's talking about the song that he wrote. What's the name of that song? Do you remember?
A Day in the Life.
Okay, so we can't sing it for you because then we'll get in trouble. But if you look it up, you'll be able to understand what he's saying, and it just ties in together because life is full of bumps. And
Yes.
I will say, when you ignore that pothole, that little bump. And a bump can be a pothole or can be a raised bump, right?
Yes.
It's going to get bigger.
Yes.
So
It's going to get worse.
Do what you need to do to see what you can do to better lessen the bump, better the outcome of your life. Because otherwise, and don't ignore it,
Yes.
it will get bigger and it will get worse.
Yep.
Like a cold that turns into the flu or like something worse. So you definitely want to do a checkup, right, with your little bumps, especially in your relationships, because you want to keep them healthy and lovable.
Yeah.
I love you.
Well, you want them to be growing.
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope that you want your,
Right.
I want my relationship with Donna to be growing, to become more vibrant every day. And if you've watched the show, you've heard me say this before. It's really my goal to get this woman to fall in love with me every day, all over again. And sometimes you got to think about it. Sometimes you got to change your story. Sometimes you have to, suck it up, Buttercup.
I do love your goal, I have to say.
But again, that's my goal. That's who I want to be. That is the journey that I've planned out from my life, and I'm very excited about it. And because of that, it's happening. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you giving us some of the time of your life and of your day. We hope that we said something to touch you. And as always, it's our sincere desire that the Meador Effect have an effect on you.
It's